Alright, the time is 5:31 on
Just make sure.
We'll go over the agenda for the regular meeting first. We have invocation, announcements, ceremonial matters, minutes. Do we have issues with the minutes from the March 9th, 2015 meeting?
I think they've all the corrections been made.
So, for both executive session and regular?
No, executive section is going to be postponed.
For both of them?
We have no invited guests tonight. We have Mr. Scott giving us a report from the DDA. I don't see him, but hopefully.
You said it was coming.
Yes.
Mr. Whitaker, I saw walk in. We'll have him give us a report on our audit. Anything we need to discuss, any questions we have. Mr. Sanders, you have a report for us tonight?
I've got plenty of information. I'll cede my time to Mr. Whitaker.
Okay. And then under old business, we have a second reading on the church that was scheduled for March meeting. Jason, anything you need to know? Anybody have any questions or discussion? We have under new business, the specialty items for the town green, Mr. Howard.
In the packet this time, you'll find the explanation and the summary of those items that we're requesting for consideration to go ahead and move forward with purchasing so that we can actually save some money when we get ready to implement that program, which will be towards the end of August. I believe we're going to start getting rid of that, getting ready for that. So, does anybody have any questions about anything for me?
I do. On the, like for example, the peach state amenities, it says the trash receptacle and it's got one in parentheses. Is that just buying one?
That's just one.
Is that like the little round trash cans that sit out by the side?
No, this is a big rectangular one that's heavy iron, and it's just almost permanent placement.
How much it comes?
Well, no, it wouldn't call it a dumpster.
That's how much decorative
It's just
trash
kind of
cans cost.
a decorative.
So, I mean, you're just getting one for the whole green?
Well, one for that particular area.
Okay.
So there may be others, but not that style. That's the only one of that style.
Okay. And
Part of the
then,
entryway.
like the, tree grates, that there's only two?
There's only, there's only two entry walkways down into the green that fall down into the green. The walkway stands for it, so there's only two. The rest of the trees you won't be walking around.
And we're sure that on the sundial and the compass and all of that, that what we're doing on there is final and set and,
From my understanding.
We're good if
that
we
we're
go ahead and buy
We're
them.
good with exactly the design of everything, and this is what we're gonna be, it's what it's gonna look like.
So but that was my question from the last meeting. How can we know we're good if we don't have the contractor?
because the plan is drawn, the contractor's there just to build according to the plan.
Right.
The contractor's hired to build the blueprint, not to redo anything, and not to make it up as it goes.
The contract drawings are all done, everything's spec'd, and so it already has to be built to these specifications, and that's what we went through back in January and February with the contractor building to those specifications that meet all of these requirements. He would have bought these exact same pieces for that contract. So we're just buying them separately now since we have the freedom to do that, and it saves us significant dollars.
And it could be a savings of $8,000 to $10,000 if you look at a 40-50% marginal markup. I mean,
And
so it's,
just for clarity, Bobby, I think, Barbara, there is only this one trash can, and it's just there at the entrance, because there'll be any event that's out there will need many more trash cans that we would want to pay
this
for.
is just for the entryway.
This is just to make sure there's one out there.
The
that
permanent
people have to
one
use.
will actually
Okay.
attach to a foundational base.
Okay.
You know, it will sit there. And you open it up from the back and the trash can comes out and, you know, it's a very decorative and color. You know, it's very nice.
So it'll be much easier for you to handle.
Thank you, I appreciate it. The drinking fountain of dog bowl,
Yep.
is that do you have to fill it and then
No, it's just
fills?
It's got a spigot down below, you
Got a
just step
spigot
on
down
it,
below,
put your
right.
foot,
Yeah.
fills the bowl up.
Figured that's what it was.
Yeah.
Things we do for our pets.
I can do it right
will be dog
You can
friendly.
bring out
Reese's
too.
got one. Did you get the other day?
And if I may, Bobby, I would add that if council is going to approve it at that dollar amount, not to exceed, please give some flexibility in the shipping amount, because that's the one thing we don't have an exact number on. It's close to the 700 mentioned there, but it could be more or less, so. We feel that the pricing on the other items is firm. It's just that we don't know the exact shipping until they pass it
Well,
out.
and again, if we only rounded it to 20,500, only gives us about 60 some odd dollars. So if we round it up to 21,000, then that should give you plenty of,
I just didn't want it going to the dollar amount, because that could
not to exceed
could be made or could
21,000.
not. I just don't know until they package it up and ship it.
And so where is this money gonna come out of the budget from?
This money will come out of the 2014 SPLOST, where we're going to talk about these numbers in a little while. There is $495,000 in that, designated in that number.
But the motion will need to be to take that, to approve those funds from 2014. Other questions? Master annexation plans, we went over the maps at the last council meeting. Does anyone have any questions?
I revised that one map so that, we stop that view.
We picked up those other 5 properties that Chief was talking about too on that road and with the annexation area, so that it was consistent.
Now, I know I wasn't here, but when you say those other 5 properties, there were also properties, the residential development on the east side of High Point that you guys approved, correct?
We got those.
The east side of High Point.
Yeah.
Morrisburg
Yes.
little property?
The east
The
side,
ones that
right
are
behind
already
American
developed.
Legion.
We are.
Okay, you guys approved that?
We just, I went over.
Okay, okay. And then the residential, which was to the south of Ronald Reagan.
Yep.
Okay. Good. I'm sorry, I just, wanted to make sure.
We then have the Briscoe Park master plan. You know, we had those visioning sessions at the park, October, and this is the final draft that came out that everyone agreed that we should move forward with. We've never, as a group, taken any action, so I just ask that we place on today's agenda to officially adopt this as the new master plan. Does anybody have anything drawing to receive?
No problem. This was a good thing to get done.
We then have the nomination of
Trilisky.
Mr. Trilisky.
Trilisky. Ela Trilisky to the Parks and Rec Board. Does anybody have any questions?
He's been visited to Parks and Rec and the Parks and Rec Board, right?
Yes.
We have Overcomer's House. They have asked to use the town green. I think they petitioned last year and we approved it, and then their event fell through, and they are hoping they have it on track this year.
Do we have a date on it? We know
It
the
was
date.
on the letter.
Early in August, Saturday, August 1st, from 1 to 9, and they are interested in the stage. I told Ms. Price I would get in touch with her and just go over everything that we did last time. Stage, they're a nonprofit who want to use the green, and hopefully this time things work out. But I'll get, we'll kind of be on their schedule too, make sure that I try to have it on for a approval next time or the second meeting in April.
Should it say town green or park?
It says park.
It should say town green.
Yeah, it's
And it's their letter, it's, they said they realize the farmer's market will be here and that they won't set up until the farmer's market is concluded. I understand it's our responsibility to clean up after the event, hire 2 off-duty police officers, secure an electricity pole, and provide adequate insurance and portable toilets.
And they may want to, if they're planning on starting it at
I
one,
mean, because
they may
we
want to
started
talk with
at
Gretchen
3.
and also Kelly McAloon about that transition, because a lot of the vendors aren't gone till one.
I don't think
Well,
they're starting at 1, they're saying that they wanna start staging sound equipment at 1.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I think
That,
they're just setting.
market this year goes to 12:30.
Oh, it does?
East every-
They just need to understand there's gonna be movement until probably 1:30.
Yeah,
Yeah,
1:30.
okay.
Yeah.
That's fine, I misunderstood you. I just know when we did the beach blast and it was too much to try to transition between one and the other.
And this is for their backpack giveaway, free backpack giveaway.
They've done it for several years, it'll be the first time here.
Okay, alcohol ordinance.
We passed out a little revision, and to warm everybody up, I think this is really staff initiated. And the reason it's confusing in its original method of the way it was passed is everybody in government modeled their enabling ordinances after the confusion that was the state. And so it had layers. As different types of alcohol came on the market, it had layers that forced repetitive ordinances. You would deal with beer by the package, and then you deal with the same issues of permitting. And so you had like 4 different divisions in your code that all had to do with different types of alcohol being sold. And it was just following the state code. Now, this has taken your ordinance and reorganized it so that you have an application process that's unified throughout. It just makes it easier for staff to process applications and then get to the specifics of the different types of sales that occur, and then regulate those different types of sales. So it's just putting it in a little bit different order. And the way we signal that to you guys is we marked and highlight the new sections, things that had actually been changed. And those aren't altogether 100% accurate, but they do catch everyone that has changed, and where there's some language changes in the code. So all the parts that aren't highlighted, you're not really changing your rule. You're just putting it in a little bit of different order. And we did get some feedback, and the norm is that we did that with red lines or with comment boxes, depending on the subject matter. The first one was just a read off of our last meeting, where we talked about the issue of permitting people to actually handle the alcohol within the location, pouring permits for those people who are walking around delivering it. We had a provision that said they had to be permitted. We deleted that provision at your sort of, at least your initial form.
Wait a minute, explain that to me. So like a waitress in a restaurant had to have a pouring permit before.
Right, which means you gotta go to the police station. Now, I don't think that's the way your ordinance was set up before. That's one of the changes that got incorporated as a part of the thought process of the rewrite. And then at the last meeting, y'all at least indicated to me that y'all didn't want to go through the bureaucracy of having every waitress licensed and fingerprinted and permitted. And so you can see where we redline that. The change.
And I didn't mean that comment to be sexist. I meant waiter or waitress or server would probably be a better comment.
I wasn't even thinking, I'm sorry.
Well, obviously I wasn't either. I would have used a different term.
The, let's see, if I can find that place. Let me go to Coors page.
Oh, that's on that.
Yeah, it's 37 and 30 is where you see. And the fix on that, and this is just trying to anticipate what might be the issue, is that you can see 6.4 used to say you had to have a permitted employee, and it was just changed to say an adult employee. In other words, you gotta have somebody that's employed by the licensed facility that is an adult in order for them to be serving alcoholic beverages. Now, I don't know that that's the way you want to do it, I just put that in that way as a suggestion. You probably should have some, at least employment control, so that everybody in the world doesn't just come in and
Yeah,
start.
I mean, I don't think, isn't it against the law for anyone under 21 to start?
18.
Yeah. I mean,
Is adult defined? I mean, I know that sounds silly, but adult could be
we
18
just
or adult
change
could be
that to
21.
a customer by, you know, someone over the age of 18?
Yes.
Change it to that?
But isn't there, is it always city, is it local law that is the pouring permit? Because I know I've had clients in the past that have been concerned about their criminal history and trying to get a pouring permit. So is that not covered somewhere in state law as well?
They're not required to, you're not required to have a pouring permit. Now, a lot of cities do have pouring permits, and they do a criminal background check in that process, so. But it's not mandatory. And so, cut back by a dispensing to the customer by
An employee,
over age 18. Okay. I left the penalty in at the end if they violate that. That was intentional.
So what cities in Gwinnett County don't require a pouring permit?
Swanee, we need that. I haven't really identified. Swanee is not. Is the one. Lawrenceville does. But I can tell you, the staff response to that would be cheers. In Lawrenceville, it's not, the permitting part of that process is not popular.
The conversation I had with Chief Whitehead was that there's not been any instance that we've seen in the city that he can remember that where that, having that in place would have prevented anything that may or may not have happened. I mean, we just haven't seen it, so. And again, my feeling is whoever owns the establishment, it's ultimately their responsibility to make sure the rules are followed. And if not, that's who that's who gets penalized. And, they can't harness their own.
But the person pouring the drink, dispensing the drink, would have a pouring permit. So the bartender.
No.
It would be a licensed facility.
So,
So the owner is going to be responsible for ensuring that people operating there are over the age of 18.
So how would that affect the cases that say a bartender can be liable for over-serving someone?
You got a different licensing system for bartendering. That's the dram shop is going to fall on everybody who handles the alcohol and gives it to them. There's going to be a responsibility that they monitor. And we retain the language that discourages servers from serving somebody who's obviously intoxicated. That's still in your code. So the things that pop up with dram shop where you're actually getting sued as a company because you've got somebody intoxicated, knew it, and sent them out on the street without protecting folks, that tort will still apply. And still be per se liability because it's a violation of your ordinance to do that.
In Swanee, they said when we went to talk to Swanee and asked them about their alcohol ordinance, they said unwanted police attention was kind of the fear that drove the owner of the businesses to make sure that everybody was 18, everybody was doing what they're supposed to do.
So some of the oversight came from the police department in just reviewing what was going on internally. They instead of regulating it through words, they regulated by presence and audits.
There's a deterrent effect on the front end, and then an audit effect every year. Swanee would come around and audit all the license companies once a year, make sure they're in compliance with everything else.
Well, in our partnership with Guide, affords us the ability, I think, 3 times a year for them to actually help with audits as well. So we could probably enhance our audit ability too by that.
Jason, how often do we audit now?
We're not required to, on an as-needed basis, basically, if you hear something that's going down, shouldn't be, then typically that audit consists of the chief sending some officers down here, but as far as checking the books, we haven't since I've been on a yearly basis or even, only if we feel like somebody's under-reporting. There's not so many that you don't develop a decent relationship with the businesses that are been there for a while, that you get a good feel on who's doing what. I think we've got 30 licenses for alcohol and beverage, and some restaurants and package stores.
You'll see on page 26, these are Councilmember Emmanuel is commenting with regard to hours. And these hours have changed over the years, and his recommendation was, instead of being precise about the hours of operation, to use language that's more general to make it the state law requirement or maximum state law allowance is the hours that are adopted for operation.
What are the hours from the state now?
They're all different depending on what type of alcohol and what day of the week it is. And that's why they when they did Sunday sales, it changed. They've moved to, they've adopted special provisions for holidays. There's a slew of them. So it's just hard to keep up with that. But if y'all are willing to do that, it does provide the owners with a lot more flexibility.
This is under noise prohibitions.
Right, that's just noted in the wrong place, that's a note.
all right.
Yeah. They set a time limit. It would really go in every place where there's a time restriction.
Where there's hours of operation.
Right.
We can be more restrictive than state, but we can't be more liberal than state.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, we can be more stringent, but we can't be.
In every area except distance requirements.
And so distances on page 22, is that state?
That is yours. That's what you've adopted currently.
And
So
then,
why is highlighted yellow, what's the procedure?
Well, that's one of those that I noted it because it's a variation from state law. I just wanted y'all to remember what, you just did that.
yeah, but there's no, this states this, but there's no reference, I think the town center businesses have a different requirement, and there's no reflection in here on that.
And I believe that's.
And what was it?
I think that's in the
I
zone.
don't think there's any restrictions.
Is that in the zoning, but should that also be listed in here though? If somebody's reading this as the alcohol license,
So
they
there's
see
no,
this
there's no setback requirement in the town.
in the town
Center
center
overlay.
overlay.
Now, that's the town center overlay, correct, the zoning district or the plan, the master?
Oh, the zoning.
They have to be zoned.
I think that probably needs to go in here.
I think so too, because if this is supposed to be a document that you could read and know what you're supposed to be doing, it needs to be stated in here that the town center.
Okay,
I do have a question about the quarters. I don't know, I'm looking on page 18 of the, what I got in the packet. I can't find it in the one you gave me.
now what are you looking at, Dave?
It's under expiration renewal 2017.
217.
It's 21 on
Page
On the new one?
Expiration.
Dash 17.
Um,
Yeah, quarter.
The quarters you
states-
have are not correct.
It states here that, that January, March, June, and September, and I used January, April, July, and October. I didn't know if that December or prorated time pushed your quarters up or changed them, or I'm not familiar with that type of quarter, that's all. doesn't mean it's wrong, it just,
These
I
are
don't
lawyer
know.
quarters, not accounting quarters.
yes.
But it really should be April.
It should be
Yeah.
the first of
April
January,
1st, July
July
1st.
July 1st of October.
For quarters.
Mhm. But I don't know if that's in
No, I
April.
think
Well, it's, January, February is only two.
I know, that's my
March, April,
question.
May is three, and yeah, it's-
It is,
We'll try and be normal.
Make it a
Make
little
an
easier to
adjustment.
comply with the quarterly. Are we just talking about
Whatever you want to.
the very first paragraph in the heading? It says, an ordinance to amend the code of ordinances to add chapter 6, and the very next line says, and to delete chapter 6. Seems like we should delete the old chapter and then add the new chapter. Because otherwise we're adding it and then deleting it like that. There's another place where it said it and it was in the right order.
So good.
What do you say?
you brought Nate, there's no Nathan takes a hit.
I think you said Nathan wrote it, right?
That's
That's his
exactly
story.
I'm just saying.
When you're asking your question, it's all Nathan.
That's what I said,
yeah. So that everybody understands, while there's a little bit of joking going on, this is my son Nathan and my law associate Nathan. I'm so proud of him that he's an expert in pushing alcoholic beverages.
Does your heart?
God, just warms my heart.
Takes after his father.
He and Mr. Krause have worked really hard, trying to make sure that it was consistent with the other ordinances.
It's hard to do.
It is hard.
On page 7, for the bottle shop definition, just a correction there on the word. It says bottle shop means a licensed location at which a licensee may, it should be sell beer, not sell.
yeah, we discussed that when we first came in, I was very simple.
But since it's
Spelling, but since.
Well, I
like
mean,
Nathan's kind of like, come out.
I said, you got a typo, Nathan.
no, it's just that, I know where it came from, because a lot of the other provisions say from the sale of.
I have a question about that while we're on that page. It
It's in the same
says
paragraph.
by the drink for consumption and also by the package, as long as there's 70% from the package. So is that saying that they can sell whole packages to drink right there on the premises?
No.
That's the way it reads to me.
Where is that? That on page seven?
We're defining,
Definition of bottle
we're
shop.
not giving anybody permission to do anything. This is really defining, and this is unique, it's a little unique to Snellville, the concept of bottle shop. And so you are actually licensing consumption on the premises at a place where you package sales. And I think this is your Nico example, where I think that's true. And so we're really defining what you're doing.
So what is that language also for the package? What is that?
If you look at,
By the bottle, by the package.
I understand, but why do we need that language there?
A lot of places don't allow those package sales to occur at the same place you're.
Right, but in the next part of that sentence we have, as long as they get their revenue from 70% from package sales. So what is the purpose of referencing package in the first part of that sentence if it's not that they can sell it to consume on premises?
It's like a requirement for food. You know, they're not really related.
Right, I understand that, but that's the but which part. So before the but part, it says drink for consumption and also by the package. So what is that, and also by the package? Why is that
Sell by the package.
necessary?
That's sell. So sell refers to both by the drink and for consumption, and also by the package. So sell is modifying that by the package too. So it's not by the drink, by the package, but sell by the package.
And where did we get that 70% from?
that was a part of the original ordinance that came down when Nico first requested it.
It's the sauce passage of
So that 70%
legislation.
hasn't changed though?
No.
And the idea is to let the owner know that they're restricted, they can't sell so much by the drink. It's supposed to, the idea is to make it mostly for sales and packages for consumption off premises.
So I guess then my question, if the 70% hasn't changed, when we developed, I remember we developed this for Nico's, why is it, what's different, what's new now about the bottle shop?
It's just now in this ordinance rather than.
It's in a-
What's highlighted, so that's why I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
here's what happened, here's the reason it got highlighted, was that section was not in the definitions section. It's in the definition section now. It used to be over in the, where the NICO
Okay.
exception is made, so we're moving those as general
So
definitions.
it's not necessarily new language or a new, it's just,
It will be corrected to be the right language, but it's not new, it's been that way.
Tony, in reference to the bottle shop, the agenda package on page 42, it's regulation of hybrid on-premises consumption of retail package stores. It's under Article 7. When I looked at it, I saw 7-1 type of retail establishment and then craft beer market. I didn't see any bottle shop. So should B, where it says bottle shop, should that be 7-2? And then use craft beer market as 7-3? Or am I just not reading it right?
We intended to make bottle shop kind of an umbrella descriptor for both craft beer markets and wine shops too. So instead of dealing with them differently and defining them differently throughout the code, we're trying to make it easy for people to understand what they're talking about. And Mayor, that's part of why we put that definition of bottle shop in the first part, was so that everybody would know we're not just carving out exceptions, bit by bit for Nico's and then for the next beer shop that comes along. We're trying to let everybody know that a certain type of use is appropriate that Nico's happens to embody. So that's why we did that down. Now, if it makes sense to define it that way.
So with that in mind, what you're basically saying is the requirements for Article B under bottle shop would also fall for the craft beer market where they have a 70-30 on their consumption versus package sales. Okay.
On the next page, under C,
Craft beer market should be
yes.
also.
Should that be 36 ounces or should it stay 32?
Should be 32, 2 pints,
Yeah.
16, pint 16 ounces.
So you're not talking about 12-ounce glass?
Not when you come to the beer side of it. You talk about craft, that's how normally it's sold in that.
It's in the little 4-ounce glasses
Yeah.
when you're doing
You can tell how
samples.
much beer I
Apparently Nathan's got all the answers.
He's been to college. He knows how it's done.
But basically, you got, in the case of a craft beer, you got the four called sample, you got 4 4-ounce, and then you can have 1 pint, and then you can get the growler filled at a 32 or a 64 ounce, either one, so, which effectively just changes them to be able to have 1 more pint, so.
So with that in mind, are we also, do we want to apply that same restriction on the bottle shop just in case? Or do you feel like the 70-30 split is going to control how much somebody drinks at one time? Because if there's a limit on one end, and with wine is obviously more potent, do you want to put a limit on there too, or you want to just leave it up to?
So you got a bottle shop doesn't have a limit, and your craft beer market does have a limit. Is that the way I'm reading it?
the bottle shop does have a limit.
Not as far as the ounces served, and that's what I just want to make sure that we
The
address.
seven, it has a
Makes me-
70-30 limit, yeah, right, okay.
So it's just over time, over a year, whatever the audit period is, they have to meet that, but it doesn't stop, not that NICO would, but you never know who's gonna apply for something. And they send them out with 60, ounces of wine, they're gonna be responsible, but we haven't really put our foot in and just kind of put a number there just for guidance. And even if you wanted to just transfer the same number over, that's better than nothing. And Nico, I talked to him specifically, he didn't have a problem with that either.
Well, and then most of the bottled beer is gonna fall somewhere between 11.2 ounces and 12 ounces. There's some larger bottles.
Where are Rico's place?
Yeah, well, just in general. So,
Wine's a bit more difficult.
yeah, the wine certainly is different. I think
Well, I mean, if that's a big, to me, that's a big maximum anyways, and Nick would said he would have any trouble that he doesn't do,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to facilitate that kind of environment in the store anyways, mainly for samples, but
right.
what about next guy up that's not Nico or somebody that we know or have a relationship with, and then there's no number, that's, to me, it's just opening the door for liability down the road if we don't put
From
something.
the wine shop part of it, wasn't Nico okay with 3 4-ounce glasses?
I don't remember, I gave him that final number because of what the craft beer market was, and just basically put it there, and he said that was fine, he never does that, but at least it puts a number on it, so. Without talking to him more specifically, he sells mostly samples and maybe a glass or two.
Right.
Or he does the tastings is what he does, they taste it, they drink a glass, then hopefully they buy a bottle, and it's the same kind of
Same
model
concept.
that.
Yeah, well,
But
the
Jason-
tastings are only 1 ounce or 2 that they pour.
But Jason's point is, we're all thinking Nico, and this is a ordinance regardless of who's in business,
Well,
and
let's-
somebody
let's-
could establish a wine bar, we
Well-
put no limit on
Let's
it.
just
And I
put a
think-
limit in there.
I think what he's also
Make
saying
it
is,
equal.
we've got an ounce limit on beer, but we don't have an ounce limit on wine.
Right.
Just seems,
Make
Make it the same number.
Make it the same or what?
They could make it the same.
32 ounces of wine.
If it becomes an issue, then we'll deal with it
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
You wanna go out and load 3.47?
I was just gonna say, depends who's drinking.
That's a lot of wine.
Is it still a question? Okay. On the item summary that Jason had done, under 7 special events, A was giving away versus selling in nonprofits. And bottom line is, I'm just confused about all of it. Can you just can you give me something that, I mean, I know what it's saying, but it's still confusing.
Sure, we're on page 41, is that what?
No, you're not. Where are you on?
Yeah, I'm on
50.
50 and the one.
Personal service line giving away.
If you just
You
hit
see
the
a note
highlights,
to
I'll
the
be
right
happy.
on page, on your handout 50, which it talks about the further refining the definitions
Personal service?
of personal services so that we're dealing with the issue of complimentary dispensing versus sales. And complimentary dispensing just does not work in the commercial environment. It has to be taxed. And so, you know, if we do anything in that area where we should be enhancing the requirement that, you know, this is a regulated sales process. And this isn't just for, that's not gonna work. I mean, we could, as a local city, we could do what we wanted to in terms of how we enforce our tax provisions, but the state's gonna come in and regulate it right behind us, and they're gonna be serious about the separating. So there should not be anything in a permitted facility, you don't give complimentary alcohol as part of the process. You have to designate a transaction.
So what mechanism do we use for those type of places that have it built into the price? Do they just pay the monthly excise just like everyone else based on the amount they sell? Is that how it works?
If I were doing it, I would have, there wouldn't be anything complimentary about it. It would be you know, you may pay when you come in, but there's a portion of that that's gonna be allocated to the realistic value of the alcohol.
They need to assign that value basically outside of the regular price, however
It can be in the regular price, but it's gonna have to be segregated as a legitimate sale of alcohol and as part of their service delivery.
Now, to piggyback off of that, when you're doing some kind of special event where you're actually, it's a private organization, but you may have outside public members, like a charity event, anything where, you know, you get a beer with your meal or something, how do we regulate that if it's a private, non-licensed organization, like a grand opening or
We
a
don't,
church, we just kinda,
we don't regulate that.
okay. All right.
Because that typically is a one-time event.
Right, I just wanna make sure, because we get a lot of requests.
It's
for
a
that.
gray area,
Right,
it's
okay.
a sort of a gray area, but it's not our gray area, that's the state's regulatory process gray area.
Okay.
And so it's not, we do not regulate that.
So we wouldn't even need to permit them under a special event at that point.
We can do a special event for anybody, but
Just so we kinda know what's
but it's
going
a
on.
permitted alcohol sales event. You know, whether it's there's a special provision for nonprofits having an outdoor event in the state code. So we can permit those, and then they can get a state license that matches it. Giving away alcohol is not a licensed event, and there's been a lot of cases already on giving away alcohol as a incentive to use a business, and that's not what we're doing with the personal service license part of the process. It is somebody who's actually getting a permit to serve alcohol and for sale. And so it's the selling it that is the critical ingredient in both distinguishing whether or not you're regulated, and so you got places where alcohol is served for free, and we don't regulate it. I mean, one of them's at the altar of a lot of churches. It's given away. It's not a regulated event, and nobody's gonna regulate that in terms of state
We use
regulation.
that judgment.
But the flip side of that is the process of commercial sales is what we're regulating. But you cannot do complimentary, or I would not advise doing complimentary sales where you don't book the transaction, where you have a sale and a taxable amount when you're serving by the drink.
So there needs to be some type of mechanism to record if this person came in and they got X procedure. They also had one complimentary glass of wine. They had one procedure and one glass of wine. And then that's delineated and noted, and at the end of the week, there were 37 glasses of wine given out, or bottles of beer, whatever it happens to be, and then that has an assigned value based on whatever it has to be. I mean, I'm not kind of following along the way it.
It's just like with your meal.
We don't have to codify that either, it's already basically, you have the ability within the current ordinance to collect it.
Right, and it's already well litigated. I mean, it's just not something that you can do, because people have already tried it, and the state's already said, no, you cannot do that.
What is the definition of beauty shop?
Well, how tight do you guys wanna tie them down? We can get real specific, or we can leave it discretionary. I mean, there's two routes to go. And right now, it says personal services, which is, serving beer and wine is clearly a secondary function of the business. We haven't gone any further in that. I guess what do we have, nail salons, hair salons, and beauty shops?
Yes.
I mean, anything that doesn't involve massage therapy, basically, hair.
So I'm thinking, what if like About Face wanted to serve,
What's their business?
I'm not even quite sure. Or their
Skincare.
Would they do massages there?
Pilates, and they do a little bit of everything.
Well, yoga studio, fitness, mind, body, maybe skin.
Is that a personal service? I mean, that's where discretion would come into play, I guess.
And that's why we put that subsection C, the administration a lot of discretion to dole out those licenses as they see fit. We talked to Swanee about this. Swanee's really permissive. They let everybody, all comers, ask for these types of licenses. But they're not always granted. And they also fall back on the police oversight. If there's something that's going wrong, then there's attention paid to those businesses, and they said they haven't had any problems. So we worried a lot about how to restrict that.
I mean, that's up to you guys if you want to just nail it real down. It makes it real easy for you to administer. Then you're going to have exceptions to places like that that may want to do the right thing. you're gonna have to come get permission from you guys or the board for a variance, so it just opens up, just think about it. So, I don't have,
Do we have a definition of beauty shop in our current zoning?
I don't believe so.
And you know, we haven't really experimented much with doing what you're talking about, and that is restricting it, and we just need some instruction. We can define a beauty shop and come up with criteria for your staff, and you can add to the list of, you know, if it's skincare and that kind of thing, and, you know, if it's these art places where they have the events and the parties where they teach you how to paint. Those are on a lot of people's lists.
And I'm just thinking, you know, we're doing this because we've had a request, but what other businesses out there may want, or may we be willing to allow to have this type of service?
Probably tax preparation, because.
Okay, it's already going on. I don't think there's any ramping up for that. Beauty parlor as defined, an establishment in which hairdressing, makeup, and similar cosmetic treatments are carried out professionally. Now, that's just one definition of beauty shop.
I just don't wanna walk into the body shop and be a while and get.
Yeah, that's what we were worried about, and that's why we.
I think there really needs to be restrictions, but I think we need to
Way out
think
the law,
of.
where's that?
What? I'm
It's
sorry.
way out, I mean, there's nowhere here that says anything like that.
That's
Well,
not
there
personal,
isn't.
it's
It's
not
not
a
a
personal
personal
service.
service, yeah.
And that's why you prepare a
That's
list.
an automotive, yeah.
It's an automotive.
Now, if your car is fuel and alcohol, I think it's got it in here, you've got the definition, if I come up with some off-the-wall business, you can look at it and say, yeah, that fits, or no, it doesn't, or we need to go with
And
that.
they can appeal, well, they'll appeal the decision if they don't agree with it, they'll go to court at that point. And then if there was something that was really a concern, like this business is new and it's unique, we wanna give them this opportunity, then we just change it.
They just added to the list.
Yeah.
Unless we try it.
I just don't think it's well thought out at this point in time.
It's well thought out, we just need to figure some more definitions so that there's less questions coming in.
Yeah, I'd rather it was.
Fewer questions, and then all you have to deal with is new exceptions, as opposed to an existing business and somebody isn't quite sure.
And is it definitional as well? Do you feel like those weaknesses and well thought out? Is it just the definitions of those three uses?
I think that the inclusion of beauty shop is just kind of, we just added that in there. I don't think we have a definition of beauty shop, so I've got some concern over that term. But I also think it's not well thought out in the fact that obviously we had a request from a nail salon, and that's why we're focusing on nail salon and hair salons. But there maybe it's the paint, you know, the paint people, I won't say paint by numbers, because that's not what it is. Maybe we want to include them in here. You know,
There are, they're in there.
I understand, but as far as a personal license is concerned,
That's not a personal service, you're going in to paint. Personal service is you're gonna go in and surrender your body for whatever, hair, teeth,
Well, let's not put
whatever.
it like
Oh, don't get it.
that's not, yeah.
I mean, we.
I think there's some gray area, you know, I could, and I'm not saying I've even talked to them about this, or they've even suggested this, but I could completely see somebody going to About Face and as they're in their, you know, aftercare place, having a glass of wine to relax or something, and I don't think they would fall in this category. I just don't think we've thought through the different scenarios of the types of businesses we would have in our city. Some of the places we're trying to attract in the town center, I think this would be something that they may want to offer, and we haven't thought through that, so I just don't think, I think
Well,
we're
and
focused
that-
on the actual need that's in front of us and not the possibilities that it could be.
But I think not knowing what some of those future ideas might be, it's gonna be hard to address them now.
We'll never get
But
involved.
it's not a problem to,
Well, and
Add
maybe
to the
where
list as
we
things
have a
come up.
difference in approaches, because to me, when you make a law, it should be, it should last the test of time. It shouldn't be added on a situation first. It should be there so that when situations occur, you already have the law in place. So that's just a different approach.
Well, if that's the case, we'd still be working with our very first charter from the very first time we ever tried to do this, so I don't know if that's realistic.
What kind of places are defined? I mean, I read this so many times, I'm just,
I think beauty shop is redundant. A beauty shop is typically a hair salon, which we already have done. I think if you delineate a hair salon, a nail salon,
the arts.
the art thing is totally different.
Give me the other things that we talked
I
about.
think well, I don't know what all the possibilities are. I think you're getting classification. No, it's filling in the definitions is not hard. We will do that. Well, I think everybody's in agreement that we need to define what these places are that we put on the list. I think this gives you the place to add the list when it becomes a one-word change rather than a whole charter, a whole code change.
Right,
And so,
Right, for instance, like a spa, that would be a personal service. That's not close to what, where the about face is, closer to that, the beauty shop would be a spa.
And I don't even know, I don't know.
No, they do facial
They do
treatments,
facial treatments, and I think
Not
theirs
no
is
resin
more
design.
medical,
Yeah.
They do
medical
medical, you're right.
along
They
that
do
line,
medical.
not necessarily
Yeah,
just,
the nurse.
Well, not just them, what about, and I can't think of her name right now, Flora?
yeah,
But
Barbara
she's
Well,
the
Fuller.
same,
something
she's
like
the
that,
same, she's
yeah.
the same thing as,
But she's the
about
same
face.
thing, she's more,
Medical.
she's more medical, I forgot what they
Procedures,
use.
medical
Yeah,
procedures,
procedures,
yeah.
not,
Well, if they do an injection, that takes it,
yeah.
if they're doing Botox or any of that stuff, that takes it
But,
out.
you know, with personal services, that gives us the category, and then again, we don't know what somebody's making down the line, but it's not what we already have in there, the definition, which right now we only have 3. Then anything other than that becomes an exception, and has to come and see if we add it or not, and then we have that decision to make at that point, but at least we have the umbrella there that something could be added to, be as restrictive or not. It's only gonna be the people that right now we decide we're allowed to
Because my concern would be that it's too broad right now, and all of a sudden we're out of control on things. So I would rather be more restrictive and
have.
add,
Which is pretty much the way it is. Personal services right now has 3 categories. You wanna,
You would need to take the discretionary language out too, and just remove that, and I'd be fine with that. Basically, it is what it is, and it fits in the definition, then you can have a permit.
You create a right that way, though, you know? I mean, if somebody applies and they fit within our category, and, you know, if you eliminate that discretionary language, then they kind of are entitled to be approved under this personal services license, so.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
underlying all permitting with alcohol is you're not entitled to it. You just get this.
you get the
smile.
ones that
stars
are,
in
and
line.
we'll decide,
Yeah. So that's exactly right. It is keep your discretionary language, and just because somebody's in a convenience store business doesn't mean you have to give them a license or let them keep it.
What about page 41, special events licenses, why is that, what's different about that?
I think these were kind of what we were getting from some smaller places that may want to be able to serve alcohol, like I guess Lincolnville is a good one. They have like some kind of in-house, maybe beer tasting, wine pairing, or Nico, where they're not limited to a small amount or anything. It can be more than, it can be like a 3-day festival or something. That's kind of what those are there for, or any other small event where they may want to sell alcohol from a place that they normally wouldn't, where the sale is occurring, as we were talking earlier about, giving it away at church and stuff. That wouldn't necessarily.
This is a new event. This is not new. You've done it on the green at all.
So is this language consistent with the language we used when we were just defining a special event permit in other places?
And the outdoor alcohol drinking area is what kind of pairs up the town green of that too. We just gave us a little more flexibility to deal with the smaller things that we didn't have the ability to really go with.
But is the 3 days and the 6 per year
Yes.
consistent with the definitions
Yes.
we've had before?
Yes.
And that's the state code.
So then, kind of piggybacking on that, when you go to the outdoor drinking area, I just had a couple questions, just so.
What page are you on?
44 of the new one, section 6.16. And as it's written now, it's not restricted to just the town green, I believe. And is that the way we want it? Do we want to restrict it to one area? Do we want to leave it open to other areas in the city if they meet these requirements? And then something related to the fee schedule is how we define the permit cost. It's one thing for staff versus, or the marketing engine for the city versus anybody else. And it's a lot substantially higher, so do we want to organize those groups a little different? Do we want to allow nonprofits to utilize the green with a lesser event fee? Because you're talking $4,000 or $5,000. What's the square footage on the green?
It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous number.
So that's something we noticed. It's either staff gets it for $250 or you pay $5 or $7 grand for anybody else. And then something that Swanee had used that I thought was a really good idea is they only allow local holders of alcohol licenses to be the distributors at these events, people that you've already worked with, people that you're funneling their money back in, Mellow Mushroom, Texas Roadhouse, to be the actual alcohol vendors. So you're not calling in a new group from Atlanta to come in and sell beer for a day or whatever and take the money and run. So I thought that was an interesting thing to at least think about. And then,
And what if you have somebody like JRM Management that wants to come and
well,
do
then we
something
would
for
have,
us?
well, you know, that would be the problem. They're not local, so we'd have to use
The
local.
JRM manager contract with the city.
Well, they would have to contract with one of our licensees.
Right. I mean, it becomes a contract with the city, a partner with the city.
But I'm using them as like a management. What if you have a management company, not necessarily them, but a management company like them that want to come on and put in a big event in the city?
Well, unless, I mean, that was just, you could still allow it. It allows for that now. That was just a suggestion on trying to keep everything local. Just something to think about. And the last point,
Can I
go ahead.
jump in on that? I know Kelly would know, I think when we've tried that with staff, we tried to keep things local and we couldn't get the local restaurants with that type of license to do it because they have to have employees and they can't afford to do that event plus run their business. So, I mean, we've tried it before.
And we've had it both ways. We've had, Nico came out, I know that Lincolnville's interested now in being on the green and doing that, but we have had outside management companies even last year.
Leave it open then and see where it goes and just try to
Because
facilitate.
I think that would be a great thing if we had enough restaurants here that are willing to do that. And I think Swanee has a few.
And I think, go back to your other point,
Yeah.
I think we should have set price, one for the nonprofits and staff, and then one for
And that's what I recommended in the new fee schedule. And then supposedly, do you want to run every special event outdoor drinking area back to you guys? Or do you want to events? Because that's, either way, because that's a requirement that we need to, it only requires one reading as written now, but if they need it, we can just get it done. I prefer it that way.
If they meet the requirements, that just gets done. And y'all see a problem with that? Just being handled administratively? It's just whether we want to give up control on, who's out there. I figure.
Okay. Those were my only real concerns outside of the fee schedule.
So do we want to set a fee schedule, or does that have to be part of this ordinance?
It needs to be, and what I did when I provided with the summary, I went in and basically the only changes that were made were before when Snellville didn't have a Sunday sales provision, it was Monday through Saturday, so when we added it, we just added on like a piggyback license fee. So instead of that, there's only one business in the city that utilizes that doesn't sell on Sunday, that sells the rest of the day. Just combine that additional fee with the regular fee and make it one license for the whole week. So it eliminates us from having to issue two licenses to every business.
And the fee structure is equal to what the two would have been anyway. You add the two together, the one is the same now. So it wasn't an increase. I didn't see.
No, there was no increase.
Right.
So then we handled the small temporary events. We need to make the provision to change for the nonprofits to apply for the outdoor alcohol permit. So if apply to all
Make the
nonprofits.
nonprofits the same as that.
Right, and then everybody else still has to pay that.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of money.
I think it's kind of, I think that's what it's designed to do, is to keep the, you know, anybody that just want to come in. If you want to look at that one too, it's a lot, it is.
It's a lot of money.
Unless you just minimize the area you're using. And then, the personal services permit, you pick a number, I picked 250, I thought that was fair. Swanee charges 50, I thought that was that's for the amount of oversight you're gonna do, it has to be a little higher.
That's the persons for the work that we talked about.
So it seems like we have a lot of changes we need to make, or things we need to go through, or we wanting to do something with this tonight.
We had on for first read, can we
It's
not do
actually
that?
under new business, it's not under public hearing, so we need
Well,
to,
both of them.
we need to change that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have a,
So if we can still leave it for first read, then hopefully these corrections can be made and do it for our second.
Can the changes be made in 2 weeks?
Sure. Yeah, you haven't given us much to do.
but here's my question, are we gonna be ready to vote on those changes, or are we gonna wanna review them at a meeting before we actually vote on them?
They're made, unless there's something else that comes on top we discussed, we're not.
You can review them in the work session.
Yeah.
Or anything that jumps.
Do we
One
have
good
any-
thing, it is 3 weeks to the next meeting.
Yeah, if you have it.
Are we okay amending the agenda to put that under the first read?
I have one other thing, under section 2.3 for licensing, penalty for violation.
Mandatory penalty.
Yeah. The way this read to me, and I don't, maybe I'm in a wrong section, or trying to read too much into this one section, but it says, shall be unlawful for any person to sell or possess for the purpose of sale any alcoholic beverages where the person doesn't have a license granted by the city. But if we're talking about ones like, it was the nail salon that I thought about, where they're giving it away complimentary, which I guess based on what we discussed, it's not really complimentary, it is for sale. I was just thinking if we needed to make sure we added that language in there, because it kind of sounded like to me, if you were doing it this way, you'd get in trouble and a penalty if you didn't have a license. But if you were doing it the complimentary way or something, or a way that you didn't have to have a permit, there wouldn't be an issue if,
It says sell or possess.
huh?
It says sell or possess, so even with the complimentary permit license, you're still having a license.
Well,
Because they possess it.
but possessed for sale, I think is the,
It already says that.
yeah.
So we're doing-
So, well, I mean, it is a little, it could take
We can take clarification on it.
I got one more clarity to that, for the fee schedule too, for these hybrid types, like wine and shop, craft beer market. The application of the fee schedule now would be that they would pay for retail consumption license as well as a package license. That's just want to make sure that that application is okay, and we don't need to set another fee just for those types. So they're gonna pay, you know, beer only would be, $500, and then beer only for the on premises would be $750 for their yearly license fee. For beer only. That's no, distilled spirits is gonna get really expensive. So if there's something, anybody.
That's the way it is now, correct?
Well, we don't have that, with Nico, we haven't been doing it that way. It's just been, you know, I think package store is what we're gonna charge the town. Because it's kind of a
So we're
different,
increasing the fee?
wouldn't be increasing them, we don't have a structure for that. So if you wanna give them a break for both, maybe not, you know,
Okay,
250 on.
right now he is selling by the, he has.
Right, we never added the
So what does he pay right now?
I believe it's 500.
Okay, so tomorrow, or
It
if
could
after we pass it,
increase.
it'll be $12.50.
So-
That's an increase.
Yeah, if you wanna keep it the same, we can do that too. If the bulk of their business is off-premise consumption, then we can apply it that way. I just want clear direction on how
I
it's
see,
applied.
okay. Well, when they're doing it to promote the off-premise consumption.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument.
Yeah, so I don't see why we charge them extra to do that, because the only reason they're doing it is to promote their off-sale.
Which is what they're doing it in promotion of their business. Because that's their business. is
And
for
and
people to come in and buy
promote
it.
people to buy it and leave with it.
Right, exactly.
Let somebody else speak.
Nathan, in 6-16 outdoor alcohol drinking area, I just have a verbiage, a wording.
What page are you on?
The
45.
one in the packet was in 37, so I don't know what's in
45.
45.
6-17.
Yes.
Numbers?
A. And it was license fees applicable to this chapter are set forth in the schedule of fees and charged on file in the office of the clerk. Is that the city clerk, or is that a clerk that does the, processes the licenses? Is that somebody at the police department?
I think in every
Who is
reference,
clerk?
we attempted to refer back to the website for the schedule of fees, isn't that right, Jason?
Yeah, or the fee schedule basically posted on the website.
Right, so this is, I'm glad you pointed that out, because before it was always with the city clerk, but we're putting the schedule of fees offsite to a website, so I need to change that
So
reference
you
to.
just take that out,
Yes,
and then it just ends in a period after that. Okay.
or it'll be schedule of fees posted on Snellville.org,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that's something I wanted to, Tommy asked if this fee schedule was part of the ordinance. Before, it literally wasn't part of the ordinance, and now we've purposely taken it and put it on the website to, you know, for ease of reference, I think was the main
Because
purpose.
we have
I
more,
don't think, I think it's easy to have it on the website, but I think it's a bad practice to reference something as just on the website. I think you always need to have a hard copy available somewhere for someone to get. I mean, believe it or not, there's still people that don't go on the website to do their business, so I think it's,
You still have a hard copy and just not have it in the ordinance, have a hard copy. It's available at City Hall somewhere.
right, so I'm saying in the ordinance, I don't think we should actually say, find it on our website. I think
Right,
just
right.
available through the
Or-
city of
or can I
Snellville or
just-
something
yeah.
like that.
Okay,
Either or.
yeah.
So either or, hard copy available, City Hall, or the website. Or on the website.
Say, I mean, that's pretty well answers
Just
the
needs to reference it, really is, probably addendum's not the right word, just it's separate from the ordinance, so if we want to change the fee schedule, we can just change the fee schedule without having to change the ordinance.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
If I may, Mayor, just a question, the two areas, one is a microbrewery. Let me just share that briefly, so, because we have people interested in that, and then we also, at the Operation Homebrew, he has talked about wanting to be able to do a class on brewing, let the people pitch the yeast there, then store it for them, and let them come and pick it back up. And then council may get questions on those two things as well, so that they're fully informed in that. Explain what
And
this
so would
ordinance
those
is on
be
those.
covered?
The second one is not. And we really can't find a way to manufacture in a commercial setting. Even, you know, there are manufacturing exemptions that go with home brew. There are exceptions that are state permitted that go with commercial home brewing. It happens in Florida, I think. It's not something that you see on the radar screen in Georgia enabling legislation.
So we couldn't do that because the state.
Right, the state enables us to do everything. I mean, the guiding restrictions are the state statute. So, you know, everything in here has to have a foundation in the state code, and that one does not have it.
And what was the first one, Larry?
Well, it was two-part. One, that one, and the second one, just make sure that we have a clear understanding of a microbrewery as opposed to a brew pub. We have folks in the community that want to establish a microbrewery.
how do you handle it as a wholesale, is that how you would handle it, through the alcohol ordinance, as a wholesale? Because I didn't see anything else in there besides a brew pub, which is different from a microbrewery. They don't want to sell any food, they want to just say, Gold Brewery and Snellville.
Well, then that's on.
They are selling it then to a distributor who then
Wholesale.
sells it.
It's a
They're
wholesale.
Yeah,
wholesale.
that's what I mean,
Yeah.
I just wanna make
Not
sure
not for
we don't turn,
consumption.
we don't turn them away, and because they do special things like pools and stuff there, and just wanna make sure. that it's-
So do we need to add a definition for microbrewery to this ordinance, or no, they're not gonna fall under it, so it doesn't matter?
But they're gonna have some, permission.
Yeah, that's, I just, we can then talk about that, if we can do it when it comes, or we can just set the table, it doesn't matter.
So this business model, they're just micro brewing here and then shipping offsite, no consumption. no
Well,
nothing.
typically, how these places work is they have the brewery on site, they use the tours to bring the people in, they sell, you know, the law was just changed in Georgia about what you can sell versus, you know, what you can give away, now you can charge for the glass. It's a little more permissive, but not totally open, but they do have a certain model. They bring people in on the weekends, typically to tour, but you can't buy beer and leave with it, you can sample it,
Mm.
but you can't take it home with you. So that's the big fight that went on in the last bill cycle, but I just wanna make sure if somebody comes in, that we can have that ability. Of course, it'll be a zoning issue, but for a licensing purpose, that it's there for them, if that, whatever that may require.
It's my understanding that for a microbrewery, the law requires them, Georgia law requires them to sell to a distributor.
Right.
They can't distribute themselves, so we would just want them, we would want to make sure that we allow for them to be here and do the two things, manufacture it and do their tours, because that helps build their brand, and then they can just sell it to a distributor, which is what the law
But
requires.
at the end of the tour, do they give a sample?
Yeah, it's all precedented. in
Yeah,
state
there's a
law.
sample, but then you, yeah, I don't know how that all fit, but I think we would want, those are the areas I want to make sure we had some conversation about, because you will have conversation with the community about that with some people.
Okay, sounds like we need that in definition.
Anything else? Okay. That then brings us to our work session agenda. Do we have any correspondence?
We do. We have a letter from Gwinnett County DOT. Just pass those around. They will be, Columbia Engineering will be staking and surveying in order to prepare a design for the roadway improvements along Springdale Road and No Business Creek. Just making everybody aware of the work that is coming down on our south side.
City manager report?
Meeting in executive session to give a break.
Anything more we need to say on alcohol ordinance?
I think we beat that one to death.
I'd like to talk about packaging.
We could do that over a drink later.
Alright, that brings us then to lost funding for Briscoe Park. This is lost funding for parks in general. So I asked this be put on here just because we, you know, we're getting ready to finish phase 2, 2A, is this what I'll call it? 2B? And, want to look at the funding we have and where, make sure we're going in the right direction for the rest of the funding, so. In a minute, we'll talk about transportation, I guess, but looking just at the, recreation, which is number 2, we have roughly 1.639 million, or 19.8% for Parks and Rec. Mr. James, you want to go through the numbers for us?
And on the 2014 SLOSS, that's correct. We got, it was, got 19.8% of the funding. We estimated about $230,000 a month collections. We're right at 227 or 228 right now. So a little bit might have to be adjusted after time, after we get a full year, and we'll see where we are. Hopefully it will improve a little bit. that 19.8% came to $1.6 million, basically, a little over 1.6. The items underneath recreation, town green, both the east and the west side, budgeted $495,000 for the FY16 budget year. Phase 2B, this is exactly what it's going to take to finish 2B. We knew that the 09 splosh was not quite going to get there, and there's about $413,000 left to finish 2B. That's total completion of the softball playground concession stand complex. When we talked about this before, we put $100,000 in for Oak Road. We wanted to finish the basic amenities in that park at the same time we finish the sidewalk next year. So that $100,000 is in there for FY16. Park facility needs, this is kind of a catch-all. It's spread over 3 years, that $231,000. $50,000 in FY15 is for the tennis court repair. Lisa has talked to a couple of vendors, and the best vendor that we have right now with the best warranty is just under $50,000, I think. So that would put us in a position where we have renovated courts without cracks, with a fairly good warranty. It will get us through to the next splosh, where hopefully we may add a couple courts. But that's the $50,000 there. $150,000 in FY16. We have been through and looked at the lake wall. The lake wall is basically losing its foundation, caving in a lot of areas, and we've looked at repairing the lake wall. And basically, we're talking about that 150 and that 31 would cover things like that, as well as some other minor repairs, which we need to put a list together. But $231,000 for park facilities. And when we talked last time about needs, we came up with a kind of, I call it a placeholder for the town center. Matching for grants, repurposing, if we were going to be, what we were going to be working on the next 3 years. And that catch-all category is, there's $400,000 in there for different needs as we go along. We talked about, I think we applied to the ARC to upgrade update our master plan. There was a match there. We talked about the public market, and looking at the public market on the Wisteria property. So there are, that really, as I say, it's a placeholder. There's flexibility, I think, there if you needed to move that money around. But that's where we ended up with the $1.6 million for recreation.
And so I asked for this to be put on tonight's agenda. I'm going to follow up and ask that it be put on the next work session agenda as well. Some things to think about. Actually, I'm going to ask that it be put on, not the next work session, the second meeting in April work session. What I'm going to ask, I don't know, Ms. Bender, if you were part of it, but at one point in time we did a walkthrough of the park and we made some suggestions, and I don't know necessarily, not through the park staff fault or anything like that, but I don't know if we've necessarily followed up with all those suggestions, and I don't know if we've given the support and the funding we need for some of those, and maybe some of them aren't necessary now, and I know the park staffs try to make do with what they had, but what I'm going to ask is that we try to do a walkthrough between now and this appearing on the agenda again, get that old list out and see if any of those are still concerns, and see if there's any SPLOST issues, or SPLOST funding we can address any of the issues with, or if there's anything, before we work on the next budget, if there's anything in that budget. I think sometimes we forget about the park because we don't see it on a daily basis like we do the senior center or City Hall or the town green. I'm also going to be asking in some upcoming meetings, and one of the reasons I wanted to look at this is I've been having some conversations with some of the art commissioners. We've gotten a couple of estimates. We're waiting on one more estimate to see about creating either in the storage room or maybe in the space upstairs into some type of multi-purpose room that could be used by the arts for poetry readings or a one-act show, a one-man show. It looks like that may cost about $15,000 to $20,000, so look at those fees and see. Got the electrical, which was very cost effective. Painting can be done by inmate crews, but still waiting on heating and air estimates. So I have no idea how much that was. The electrical came back, I think, at like $6,000. So it seemed like that's high, Mr. Wade. Do you have a suggestion on that?
I don't know what they're doing, so I don't know what the scope is, so maybe cheap, I don't know, of course I heard it, so I don't know exactly what the scope is, I couldn't tell you.
I also think we need to make some more definite decisions about what we want to do with Oak Road Park. I know we had it clear cut. We've had some issues with the weeds growing back. Now that it's going to be springtime, we need to make some decisions of, they went out there and I know they started spraying, doing a better job, but we need to make some decisions what we want to do with that. So I want to put these out there just to get everyone thinking about these things and then put them on some future agendas to make more concrete decisions. Does anybody have any questions about the breakdown though as it stands now? Then we're also going to look at the SPOS funding under transportation so we can address the, FARS section, FARS in Ridgedale. I did have a conversation with Mr. Chapman today that I'll be happy to share after Mr. Sanders goes over the numbers.
I think everybody has both a three-splosh update as well as the 2014. And Barbara specifically asked about where the remaining funds were. Once again, this is up to date, almost to the penny. All our expenditures. If you look at the 2005 SPLOST, if you look at the legal size sheet first, public safety is spent out, no balance there. Recreation is spent out, no balance there. Transportation, that's $726,000, most of which was reimbursement from DOT. Money was taken from that account for LCI property acquisition. We've got the money back from DOT. That money is totally earmarked for resurfacing. So 2005 is basically zero available balance. If you look at 09, public safety, zero balance, recreation, zero balance. The 761, which is appropriated under recreation, is what we have left, and we will add, as I spoke of earlier, that $413,000 out of the 2014 SPLOST to finish Phase 2B. Facilities and administration, there is about $27,000 left there that has not been appropriated, that can be used for various items like we've talked about. We've talked about everything from Wi-Fi to what the mayor just brought up, to pressure washing the building. There are things that need to be done there, capital items. The key thing is transportation. You look at what the revenue that was brought in, the expenditures that were made. We have appropriated about $417,000 of the remainder, but that leaves a balance of right at $214,000, which could be used for transportation purposes. And I think Barbara was specifically talking about the intersection projects. To really get a good look at it, you need to go to the 2014 list and look under transportation. You can see the main thing there is E, sidewalks. Our city match for the county's set-aside money, the $2.2 million max set-aside, we budgeted $618,088 for. In addition, the engineering and inspection number there is for our engineering and inspection costs, which will be reimbursed, and it's at the 81-19. The county's 81%, we have to put 19% of the total project up. And so we submit our invoices, we get an 81% reimbursement. So if you look at we have basically $2.2 million from the county for 2 sidewalk projects. Anything that those sidewalks, if they come in at $1.8 million, That's $400,000, which the last time we talked to Alan Chapman, he committed, he said that money's there for right-of-way, or easement acquisition at the intersections. They're committed to the design, the engineering, and construction of the intersections. Be they signalized, not mast arms, we would have to pay for the mast arms, or be they roundabouts. There's been no, roundabouts are a little more expensive construction-wise, but there's been no backup on the county. They're committed to either way we go. I've heard nothing negative about that. So whatever we come in under that 2.2 million on those sidewalks, you can add to that 214, and then the 19% of the of our match that is left over. So you have a pretty significant amount of money there for looking at right-of-way and easement for those two intersection projects. That's basically where we are.
The reason why I asked Butch to put all these numbers together so we could figure out where we were is because, as I've stated before, I think short-term, the signalized intersections are cheaper, but long-term, I don't think that's the right thing for the area. And after we had our meeting 2 weeks ago and we were looking at these intersections and talking about it, I think we need to commit the money to doing the roundabouts. And I talked with Jason and with Butch, and if y'all can take one of these maps and pass it. I had a little visioning idea. This is a big map here.
Are these all the same one?
Oh, there's pictures. Yeah, there's pictures here on the back. So pull off the back too. So Jason was kind enough to clean up my hand drawings and provide a few pictures. That's what I was thinking about. If we look at only the roundabouts on Fars Road, which are on this map, they're the two green circles that you see here. So they're the two green circles here on the map. These are the ones under consideration right now, okay? And if we talk about our long-term plan for this whole area from the town center, Wisteria Drive, not necessarily Wisteria Drive, but the residential housing that starts right behind Wisteria Drive and moves from there all the way down to Ridgedale. The plan, the comprehensive plan that has always been in place is to preserve this as a residential area. And we've had a lot of encroachment on, 124 with the heavy commercial that's there, a lot of the houses on the one side of North Road. We've had a lot of people wanting that to go commercial so they could sell their property for more. We need a plan before we start allowing all of that encroachment to start coming, and especially jumping over North Road, because we're going to endanger this housing community. So I started thinking about, if we look at this as a long-term plan, spending the extra money on these two roundabouts makes sense in the long term. Because to me, this is just my personal opinion, when you start putting signalized intersections into these neighborhood areas, it just makes it feel more industrial to me, more commercial, and I think it kind of breeds that area for more commercial development. I mean, I just look at the area where North and Pinehurst, with the signalized intersections there, I mean, those roads get really wide there when you're coming up to the light, and it doesn't feel like a residential area when you're on that corner anymore. So I worry about that, and I worry about with these two intersections, if they go from four-way stops to signalized, we got to start worrying about these, and these are starting to get more into the